So trim paths. What this is more so for 2D, but it can be really helpful for 3D as well. That's kind of fast. That's okay. Okay. So what I'll do is kind of work on trim paths. All right. So maybe I'll make that in a new composition just so I don't have all this stuff everywhere. All right. Let's say you have a map. All right. Close enough. And you've got some places you want to go on this map. This is just going to be my background. All right. What I'll do is create a new shape. I'll name it my path. Or actually, I'll name it my line, just to avoid confusion. And I want to draw a line. I'm going to change my fill to no fill. And remember, that's Alt and click or Option click with Mac. I'm going to change my stroke to, we'll maybe do just like a solid black, or maybe we'll do a teal, something vibrant. Might be kind of hard to see on that white. Make it a little darker. And let's see. There you go. Pretty good. Okay. I'm going to delete. There we go. Okay. So new shape path or shape layer. And what I'm going to do is select this. I'm going to make a mark from here to here to here. I'm going to increase my stroke to about 30-ish. And now if I toggle this down, we've covered this a little bit before. Transform, everything has a transform, right? Anchor point, position, scale, rotation, opacity, that kind of stuff. Shapes have contents, and inside the contents, you'll see every shape that you have. I only have one shape, and it's just this line. And it has normal here. I can do darken, multiply, whatever. These are just kind of filters. These are pretty similar to what you'll see in Photoshop. I'm going to keep it normal. And then if I toggle this shape down, I have path, stroke, fill, and transform shape 1. So if I toggle this down, I'll get all of these things within my contents or within my individual shape. So my position, I can still move this around. This moves it independently. Now, if I had another shape in here, let's say another line, I can come down here. I can adjust my position from my transform shape 1, and that moves just that point or just that shape. Whereas if I come down to transform for my whole shape and try and move this around, it's going to move everything at the same time. That's the just important thing to know about working with these shapes. I'm going to get rid of shape 2. All right. So now I have a few other things. So transform works just like a transform would or should. Fill, you can change your fill color. I don't have any fill color for this. I don't want it. I don't need it. I'm not going to bother with it. Stroke is what we're going to be working with for the most part. And I'll come back to this in a second. But this deals with, pretty much everything to deal with the line itself. Stroke is the same kind of stroke in Illustrator or Photoshop, if you guys have worked in there, which you should have. Am I right in assuming that? You guys are familiar with Illustrator? Okay. All right, and then we have our path. And You can toggle this one. This just determines, is it going clockwise or counterclockwise? Which is your start and finish? So is this my start and this my finish? Or is this my start and this my finish? Usually I keep it by default. All right, so now you'll see at the top of this contents right up here, I have this little add button. If I toggle that, I have a couple different things that I can add to all of these objects within my shape layer. What I want to do is hit trim paths. So now for every shape that I have in here, I'll have a trim paths. So if I go in here and make another line, well, I take that back. For each shape layer, I have a trim paths. I'm going to get rid of that though. All right, so when I add trim paths, I have, and open it up, I have start, end, offset, and trim multiple shapes. And I think maybe that's where I can change things independently of one another or all at the same time. But what you're really going to be looking at here is going to be your start, end, and your offset. So this will probably look similar to when we were working with text and like 3D text. If I hit this start, and if I start toggling or like moving this slider, you'll see that I'm kind of pulling away from this end or my start position of my line or my path and kind of going towards the end of it. Now, if I hit end and slide down here, I'll go in the opposite direction. Now, notice that the start is at 0%, end is at 100%. So just like when we were looking at text, this part of my segment or my line segment is going to be 0%. This is the start. This is the very beginning. Right here is 100%. This is going to be the end of my line. And actually, let me pull it over there. There we go. So we can see the whole thing. So it's important to realize that and how it works. Because if I pull my end point down to, let's say, 50%, it's going to go exactly halfway through this line, and that's going to be my end point for my path or my trim path. Now, if I want to start off at, let's say, 10%, I can do that too. And so now I have this small little line segment. I can also keyframe these, and I can also offset these. So offset just means how far off are you going from what was defined in your start and end. So now my start is at 100%. Oh, 10%, excuse me, 10 and 50. And now if I set my offset to slide it down, let's say, 100 degrees or something, say 360. Well, it's all in rotation. So if I hit 360, it's actually going to be one full rotation and it'll be in the exact same space. If I hit 0 and then 180 degrees, that's going to be halfway through this whole entire line segment. So it's not a circle, but it looks at this line or this path as like a full kind of circle. So imagine right here would be 12 o'clock or, well, yeah, 12 o'clock on a clock, and this would be 12 o'clock on a clock. This is where they end is where they kind of meet in After Effects space. But what you really can do with some of these trim paths is use them to kind of animate lines, animate segments, and you can do it with more than just lines too. You can do it with shapes and colors and different things like that. But let's see, we can start animating by creating a keyframe. And let's say I'll go out this far and I'll adjust that. So then my line clears. So I'm back at 100%. So now if I play through here, there we go. I have my line kind of leaving. Let's say I want to make an actual path, like or like a little marker. Let's say I have a little animated car and it's driving from point to point, and I want to make a little path behind it. Well, what I'll do is change my end to about 10%. And I'll keyframe this. And actually, you know what? I'll make another shape layer. We'll name it car. And we'll just make some box. What color car should it be? Maybe blue. There we go. So let's say I have my car, it moves from here. I'm just going to change my transform. I'm not going to just change my transform. Say this far out, it goes right over here. Hit my rotation, and then we'll say it drives off. Change my rotation a little bit right there, and move it off. Okay. I'll hit N. Let's see. I've got my car, it's kind of moving around, right? So if I want to make a path that follows this car, what I'll need to do first is make sure that my actual path follows that car. And it doesn't quite. And I can adjust that. I'm going to go to my shape and shape transform. There we go. Okay. So this loosely follows the path of my car, right? This could be a bat in a cave, maybe. All right. And so I'm going to open this back up. And it's really easy to get lost in here, as you can tell. All right. Bring back up my trim path. So let's see, right about here. I want this little path, this little segment to be following my car, right? So this is a 10% segment length. What I'm going to do is between here and right there, I'm going to keyframe. And I'm going to go from the end, and it'll be right about here. So that's at 48. We can just probably bump it up to 50, and I'll put this to 40. Because I want these to be 10% away from each other at all times. So now this is kind of speeding up, so maybe that's not quite right. Right there. So 46, so that'll be 36. And here we go. So then I'll make another keyframe right here. Drag this end right there. And I'll give it about 10%, so 89. And then right here, just a little off, I'm going to make another keyframe for my start and turn it to 100. So let's see what that looks like. So I've got this trim path kind of loosely following. It's not precise. It's not exactly on there. It looks like that block or the car is maybe a little faster. What else you can do with this is you can create like a dotted line as well. And what you'll need to do that, I'll kind of undo all of these keyframes, is in shape, stroke. There we go. Shape, stroke, and dashes. You'll see this kind of line, and you can hit the plus icon, and then you'll have these dashes icons as well. So you'll see up here, now that I hit dashes, I have these dashes in here. And you can adjust, how long they are, how many segments, or the dash and the offset. And really, the dash is just the width of it. And so here, what you'll do, I'll just make a quick keyframe on that. Trim path down here. We'll start it at 0, 0. So let's say your car is, again, driving across country, driving across a map. You're starting here. Then go right over here. So at this point, I'm going to keyframe the end. Because like a normal map, when you see this on TV, usually they keep at the starting position. Now I'm going to adjust this end and leave my start where it is. There we go. And then now I'll just follow this car down right about there to where it gets off screen. I'll make another keyframe for my end position and then fill it up to 100%. So now you have these sweet little dashes. How lovely. And since I've keyframed both of those, if I hit U, it opens up just what I've keyframed, and I can adjust that dash size. So you're kind of getting these weird stretching things, and that's just because I inadvertently created a new keyframe. I didn't mean to. What I'll do is get rid of that one. Now it shouldn't really stretch like that. So there we go. So that's kind of trim paths. They're pretty easy, but kind of fun to use, and you can use them for different things as well. Let's see. I can maybe try and put a trim path on my bat in my parallax composition. Let's see. I'm going to create a new layer, new shape layer. And I'll name it bat path. So my bat is just flying straight across. So what I'm going to do is just make a here to here. Simple path. What I'll do is actually maybe make it a little bit more interesting. Go. I don't want to fill. I want a stroke. And we'll maybe do it like a white. I don't know if it needs to be quite that large. About that. There we go. This one doesn't feel quite bent enough. Just kind of trying to give it some nice curves. All right. So what I'm going to do now is create my trim path. So content, add, and trim paths. I'm going to open that up. And at the very beginning, I'm going to create a keyframe for start and end. I'm going to put the end to 0. So that means that my start and end are both over here, right? So then I'm going to go up to where my bat starts coming in. About here. Create a new keyframe for my end. Just see about where my bat is. There. And let's see, I might want to actually move this path. just going to drop the position down a little bit. There we go. I'm going to hit U for right now, just so I can just adjust my trim path. And I want it just a little bit behind my bat. There you go, 14%. Go out a little bit further to right about here. There we go. And now I'm going to adjust this right about there. So that's about a 12, between 12 and 28%. So that's 16%, how long this line is. That's what I want to keep this whole time, just behind my bat. So I'll keyframe both spots here. I'll move my end up to where it's close to my bat, but not on it. There we go. And then I was 16 below, so 16 from 39. That's what, 23? 23, I think. Go. Move my bat up. Go. So 16 from 55, that's 39. There we go. 16 from 60, that's 50. From 82, what's that? 66? All right. Put it right about there. And 76, I think. Yeah. And then over here, I'll just put this to 100. Oh, I don't think I can do that. I'll put this 100 and this one to 100. There we go. So now I've got this little path that follows my bat around. It might not be perfectly lined up. Okay. So not quite matching up, but you get the kind of idea. And again, with this too, I can always go in and add in those dashes. I'll close down my trim path, go to shape 1, stroke 1, and dashes, and hit the add button. And there we go. So now I've got these little dashes. They look a little narrow. I just come over here, adjust that size, kind of like a little bit bigger. Maybe something like that. That might be too big. And I'll add a little taper effect. See how much it affects it. And I can increase the end of it. Try to make that a little bit wider, but it's okay. Okay. We can do round caps. So these become more kind of like round instead of just flat. So this is where I tapered it. It kind of becomes a little bit lighter at the end. I kind of like the round. Those are a little bit more organic. Okay, and so let's play through here. See what it looks like. 。  . 。  . 。 . 。 . . 。 . . 。 . . . . . . . . . . . 。 . . . . . . 。 . 。 。 . . 。 . . . . . 。 。 . 。 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . So that already looks a little more interesting with the kind of dashes and the kind of trimmed in at the end and the kind of capped, the round caps. So this is one way you can play around with this stuff.